Hey there, you looking kinda cute. Don't forget to subscribe and check out my other socials for more. Enjoy. The fading afternoon light filtered through the dusty windows of Martin's cluttered study. Stacks of ancient tomes and scrolls covered every available surface, testament to years spent pursuing arcane knowledge. But one book in particular occupied Martin's thoughts as he paced the creaking floorboards. A leather-bound volume embossed with strange symbols, now missing from its usual place on the shelf. "Damn it, Evelyn," he muttered, running a hand through his graying hair. "What were you thinking?" The realization that his ex-wife had stolen the book hit Martin like a physical blow. That ancient text held powerful magic he had used to subtly alter his own appearance over the years, smoothing away wrinkles and gray hairs to maintain a youthful vigor. Without it, he felt vulnerable, exposed. Martin's eyes fell on a framed photo of his teenage daughter, Amy. Sweet, trusting Amy who lived with her mother but visited on weekends. A plan began to form in his mind. Risky, perhaps even unethical, but necessary if he wanted to retrieve the book. "I'm sorry, sweetheart," he whispered to the smiling face in the photo. "But I need to do this." The next morning found Martin standing before his bathroom mirror, carefully applying makeup with shaking hands. He'd raided several thrift stores for a suitable wardrobe, floral dresses, cardigans, and sensible shoes that a teenage girl might wear. The wig itched against his scalp, but the long chestnut curls framing his face completed the illusion. Martin hardly recognized himself as he gazed at his reflection. The magic of the book had already kept him looking younger than his years, and with the feminine touches, he could almost pass for Amy's peer. It was unsettling, but also strangely thrilling. "Hello," he said softly, pitching his voice higher. "I'm Martina. Nice to meet you." The words felt foreign on his tongue, but he knew he'd have to get used to them. This deception would require total commitment if he wanted to succeed. Over the next few weeks, Martina carefully orchestrated a meeting with Amy, posing as a new girl in the neighborhood. It was nerve-wracking at first, but Amy's open, friendly nature made it easier than Martin had anticipated. Soon, the two were spending time together regularly, and Martin found himself privy to all sorts of details about Amy's life, including offhand comments about her mother's strange new book. "Mom's always been into weird stuff," Amy confided one afternoon as they painted each other's nails. "But lately she's been, obsessed with this old book. She won't let anyone touch it." Martin's heart raced, but he kept his voice calm. "Oh, what kind of book?" Amy shrugged. "I don't know, some dusty old thing with weird writing. She keeps it locked up in her study." It was the confirmation Martin needed. The book was definitely in Evelyn's possession, likely heavily guarded. He'd have to be careful in his next moves. As the weeks turned to months, Martin found himself slipping deeper into the role of Martina. He'd always prided himself on his acting abilities, but this was something else entirely. There were moments when he almost forgot he was playing a part, losing himself in trivial teenage concerns and girlish laughter. It was during one such moment, giggling with Amy over some shared joke, that Martin's carefully constructed world came crashing down. "Well, well," came a familiar voice from the doorway. "Isn't this cozy?" Martin's blood ran cold as he looked up to see Evelyn standing there, a knowing smirk on her face. She'd clearly seen through his disguise. "Amy, sweetie," Evelyn said, her eyes never leaving Martin's. "Why don't you go to your room for a bit? I need to have a chat with your friend." As soon as Amy was out of earshot, Evelyn's expression hardened. "Did you really think I wouldn't recognize you, Martin, even with all your enhancements?" Martin stood, abandoning any pretense of his female persona. "Evelyn, please, just give me the book back. You have no idea how dangerous it is." Evelyn laughed, a cold, mirthless sound. "Oh, I think I have some idea. After all, I've had plenty of time to study it." She fixed him with a calculating gaze. "But I'm willing to make a deal." "A deal?" Martin echoed warily. "Yes," Evelyn nodded. I'll cast a spell to prevent you from using the book against me, and in return, I'll give it back to you in 1 year's time. What do you say?" Martin hesitated. It wasn't ideal, but it seemed like the best option available. "All right," he agreed reluctantly. "Do it." Evelyn's smile widened as she began to chant in an ancient language. Martin felt a strange tingling sensation wash over him, but something felt off. This wasn't a simple binding spell. "Evelyn, wait!" He started to protest, but it was too late. The world around him began to blur and fade, and the last thing he saw was Evelyn's triumphant face before everything went dark. 10 years later, Martina bounded down the stairs, her long chestnut hair flying behind her. "Mom!" she called out. "Have you seen my blue sweater? The one with the little flowers?" Evelyn looked up from her morning coffee, an indulgent smile on her face. "Check the laundry basket, sweetie. I think I washed it yesterday." "Thanks," Martina chirped, darting off to the laundry room. She emerged moments later, triumphantly holding the soft blue garment. As she pulled it over her head, Martina caught sight of her reflection in the hallway mirror. At 25, she was the spitting image of her mother at that age. Same heart-shaped face, same sparkling green eyes. Sometimes it amazed her how quickly time had passed. It seemed like only yesterday she'd been a gangly teenager, tagging along after her older sister Amy. Speaking of Amy, "Is Amy still coming over for dinner tonight?" Martina asked, settling into a chair at the kitchen table. Evelyn nodded. "As far as I know. She said she'd bring that new boyfriend of hers. What's his name again?" "David," Martina supplied. "He seems nice, from what Amy's told me. I'm looking forward to meeting him." As she munched on her toast, Marina's thoughts drifted to her own love life. Or lack thereof. She'd dated here and there, but nothing ever seemed to stick. Sometimes she wondered if there was something wrong with her, some fundamental piece missing that made it hard to connect. But those were silly thoughts, she decided, shaking her head slightly. She had a good life, a loving family, a fulfilling job teaching elementary school, close friends. What more could she want? "Earth to Martina," Evelyn's voice broke through her reverie. "You'd better get going if you don't want to be late for work." Martina glanced at the clock and yelped, "Oh, no! Thanks, Mom!" She grabbed her bag and rushed to the door, pausing only to plant a quick kiss on Evelyn's cheek. "See you tonight!" As the door slammed behind Martina, Evelyn's smile faded. She walked to the window, watching her daughter hurry down the street. Even after all these years, there were moments when she felt a twinge of guilt about what she'd done. But it had been necessary, she reminded herself. Martin had been too dangerous, too unpredictable with that book in his possession. And really, wasn't Martina happier this way? Free from the burden of memories and a past life that no longer fit? Evelyn had given her a fresh start, a chance at a normal life. Still, as she turned away from the window, Evelyn couldn't quite shake the feeling that someday, somehow, the truth would come out. And when it did, she could only hope that Martina and Amy would find it in their hearts to forgive her. The elementary school bustled with activity as Martina made her way to her classroom. Children's laughter echoed through the halls, punctuated by the occasional squeak of sneakers on linoleum. She loved this energy, the palpable excitement of young minds eager to learn. "Good morning, Miss Evans," a chorus of voices greeted her as she entered the room. Martina beamed at her third-grade students. "Good morning, everyone! I hope you're all ready for an exciting day of learning." As she launched into the day's lessons, Martina felt that familiar sense of purpose wash over her. Teaching had always felt right, as if she'd been born to do it. She had a knack for explaining complex concepts in ways children could understand, and an endless well of patience for even the most challenging students. The morning flew by in a blur of math problems, reading exercises, and a particularly messy art project involving finger paint. Before she knew it, the lunch bell was ringing. "All right, class," Martina said, clapping her hands to get their attention. Remember to clean up your areas before you go to lunch. And don't forget, we have our field trip to the Natural History Museum next week. Please make sure your permission slips are signed and returned by Friday." As the children filed out, chattering excitedly about the upcoming trip, Martina began tidying up the classroom. She was so engrossed in her task that she didn't notice the figure standing in the doorway until a throat cleared behind her. "Oh," Martina startled, nearly dropping the stack of papers she was holding. She turned to see the school's new art teacher, Daniel, leaning against the door frame with an apologetic smile. "Sorry," he said, holding up his hands. "I didn't mean to scare you. I just wanted to see if you needed any help cleaning up. That finger painting looked like it got a bit out of hand." Martina laughed, tucking a stray strand of hair behind her ear. "It did get a little wild, but that's half the fun, right? The kids loved it." She glanced around the room, assessing the damage. "I think I've got it under control, but thanks for the offer." Daniel nodded, but made no move to leave. Instead, he stepped further into the room, his eyes roaming over the colorful posters and student artwork adorning the walls. "You've got a great setup here. The kids must love coming to class." "I hope so," Martina replied, a hint of pride in her voice. "I try to make it a welcoming space for them." There was a moment of comfortable silence before Daniel spoke again. "Listen, I was wondering," he began, then seemed to hesitate. "A bunch of us teachers are going out for drinks after work on Friday. Would you like to join us?" Martina felt a flutter of nervousness in her stomach. Was he just being friendly, or was there more to the invitation? She'd noticed Daniel around the school, of course. With his easy smile and warm brown eyes, he was hard to miss. But she'd never really interacted with him one-on-one before. "Oh, that sounds nice," she said, trying to keep her voice casual. "But actually, I have plans with my family on Friday. My sister and her boyfriend are coming over for dinner." "Ah, no worries," Daniel replied, his smile never faltering. "Maybe next time?" Martina nodded, returning his smile. "Yeah, maybe next time." As Daniel left, Martina found herself staring after him, a strange mix of emotions swirling in her chest. Part of her regretted turning down the invitation, but another part felt relieved. Dating had always felt complicated for her, in a way she couldn't quite articulate. Shaking off the feeling, Martina turned back to her cleaning. She had a class full of energetic 8-year-olds returning from lunch soon, and finger paint residue to tackle. There was no time for dwelling on maybes and what-ifs. The rest of the school day passed in its usual whirlwind of activity. By the time the final bell rang, Martina was more than ready to head home and prepare for the evening ahead. As much as she loved her job, the prospect of a relaxing night with her family was enticing. On the drive home, Martina found her thoughts drifting back to Daniel and his invitation. Why had she been so quick to turn him down? It wasn't as if she had lied about her plans, but she could have suggested another day. The truth was, the idea of going out with a group of colleagues, of potentially being in a social situation where romance might be on the table, made her inexplicably anxious. It wasn't that she didn't want to date. Martina had had crushes before, had even gone on a few dates over the years, but something always felt off. Like she was playing a role she didn't quite understand, trying to fit into expectations that didn't quite align with who she was. As she pulled into the driveway of her mother's house, her house too, she reminded herself, though sometimes it still felt strange to think of it that way. Martina pushed those thoughts aside. Tonight was about family, about reconnecting with her sister and meeting Amy's new boyfriend. Everything else could wait. The kitchen was already a hive of activity when Martina entered. Evelyn stood at the stove, stirring something that smelled deliciously of garlic and herbs. She looked up as Martina entered, a warm smile spreading across her face. "There you are, sweetie," Evelyn said. "How was your day?" Martina moved to the sink to wash her hands, inhaling deeply. "It was good. Busy, but good. What smells so amazing?" "Chicken cacciatore," Evelyn replied. "Amy mentioned David is Italian, so I thought we'd go with a theme." Martina raised an eyebrow. Mom, you do realize that not all Italian food is authentically Italian, right? Especially not the way you make it. Evelyn waved a wooden spoon dismissively. Details, details. It's the thought that counts. Now make yourself useful and set the table, will you? Chuckling, Marina began gathering plates and cutlery. As she arranged them on the dining room table, she found herself studying the family photos that lined the walls. There was one of her and Amy as children, gap-toothed grins beaming at the camera. Another showed the three of them, Marina, Amy, and Evelyn, at Amy's college graduation. Looking at these snapshots of their life together, Marina felt a familiar warmth in her chest. But there was something else, too. A faint whisper of something. Not quite unease, but a sense that there was more to the story than what these pictures showed. Before she could dwell on it, the doorbell rang. "I'll get it," Marina called out, hurrying to the front door. She opened it to reveal Amy, looking polished and professional in a smart blazer and skirt combo. Beside her stood a tall, dark-haired man who could only be David. He had a kind face and an easy smile that immediately put Marina at ease. "Marina!" Amy exclaimed, pulling her into a tight hug. "God, it feels like it's been forever. How are you?" Marina returned the embrace, breathing in the familiar scent of her sister's perfume. "I'm good, really good. It's so great to see you." She pulled back, turning to David with a smile. "And you must be David. I've heard so much about you." David extended a hand, his grip firm but not overpowering. "All good things, I hope," he said with a wink. "It's great to finally meet you, Marina. Amy talks about you all the time." As they made their way inside, Marina couldn't help but notice the way Amy and David moved together, the casual intimacy of a couple truly in sync. She felt a pang of something. Not quite jealousy, but a sort of wistful longing she couldn't quite name. Evelyn emerged from the kitchen, wiping her hands on a dish towel. "Amy, darling," she exclaimed, embracing her eldest daughter. She then turned to David, her smile warm and welcoming. "And you must be David. Welcome to our home." The next few hours passed in a blur of good food, laughter, and conversation. David proved to be charming and witty, fitting seamlessly into their family dynamic. He regaled them with stories from his work as an architect, his eyes lighting up as he described his latest projects. As Marina watched her sister and David interact, she felt that strange sense of disconnection creep in again. They seemed so sure of themselves, so comfortable in their identities and their relationship. Marina couldn't help but wonder why she had never felt that way. Why every attempt at romance had left her feeling like she was trying to force a puzzle piece into the wrong spot. "So, Marina?" David's voice broke through her reverie. "Amy tells me you're a teacher. What grade do you teach?" Marina blinked, pulling herself back to the present. "Oh, 3rd grade," she replied. "I love it. The kids are at such a fun age. Old enough to have real conversations, but still young enough to be excited about learning." David nodded, looking genuinely interested. "That's fantastic. It takes a special kind of person to work with kids. I don't think I'd have the patience." "Oh, I don't know about that," Marina said, feeling a blush creep up her cheeks at the compliment. "I think everyone has it in them to connect with children. It's just about finding the right approach." As the conversation flowed around her, Marina found herself relaxing, the earlier feelings of unease fading into the background. This was her family, her life. Whatever doubts or questions she might have, this was where she belonged. Later, as they were clearing the table, Amy cornered Marina in the kitchen. "So," she said in a low voice, a mischievous glint in her eye, "what do you think of David?" Marina smiled, glancing toward the dining room where David was engrossed in conversation with Evelyn. "He seems great, Amy. Really great. I'm happy for you." Amy beamed, but then her expression turned more serious. "Thanks, I think he might be the one, you know." She paused, studying Marina's face. "What about you? Anyone special in your life?" Marina felt that familiar twist in her stomach. "Oh, you know me," she said, trying to keep her tone light. "I'm married to my job." Amy's brow furrowed slightly. "Marina, you know it's okay to want more than that, right? To want a relationship? A family of your own?" For a moment, Marina felt a surge of something. Not quite anger, but a deep, inexplicable frustration. "Who says I want those things?" she snapped, then immediately regretted her tone. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean... I'm happy with my life the way it is, Amy." "Really?" Amy looked like she wanted to say more, but instead just nodded, giving Marina's arm a gentle squeeze. "Okay, as long as you're happy, that's all that matters." As Amy moved back to the dining room, Marina leaned against the kitchen counter, trying to steady her breathing. Why had she reacted so strongly? It was a perfectly normal question for a sister to ask, but something about it had touched a nerve, had made her feel exposed in a way she couldn't quite explain. Thanks for watching. Check out Patreon if you want to have early access to the other parts. If not, it will be online in a couple of days.